These center seam braces that you can see right here are missing when you get back there a little further. I've made some wood here. This is maple. This is a maple board that was actually running this way, and I cut across the board and made these thin strips so that they won't split on that back seam. So the grain on this is running this way. It's running across from the back. I've measured it the best I can. I'm going to cut it off, and I think I'll be cutting it off a little long, and I'll try hand fitting it in there. If it doesn't fit, I can always go shorter. Well, I've got the piece of wood sized to fit between the braces back here. It'll go about right in like this, but on the back. And I thought it would be important to mention, if you're doing this yourself, and it'll avoid the problem that caused these to come out. See, these here are absolutely tight from one brace to the other. Now, if you've got the wood cut where the grain is going through the wood this way, well, then it's going to expand across this way. Well, if you put that in there real tight, this wood's going to expand and pop up, and that's what's happened here. This is bubbled up, this is bubbled up back here. The two that are in there are bowed up like, I'm exaggerating, but they're bowed up like this. So they're bowed up like that because they fit too tight between those braces, and when that expands, it just has no place to go. So that's why they have come out of there and bubbled up. So I cut this one about 1/16 of an inch shorter than between those two braces that I'm going to put it in. And hopefully if it expands, then it'll have room to expand before it actually has to bust itself out of there. So I'm not going to film this, but I'm going to put glue on here and reach back in there. And then I'm going to probably just set a weight on this just to hold it in place. I'm just going to use regular wood glue. Hoping you can see down in there. It's very awkward to try to hold the camera and see that I have a brace in there holding that from the top to the back. In other words, I put the patch in there on the back, and then I laid a heavier piece of wood on top of that. Then I stood up a little post between that heavy piece of wood and this top so that it's pressing that patch to the back real tight. Okay, the brace that you can see across this back seam is so buckled up and so bowed up that I don't feel like I can just push it down and glue it. So I'm just going to pop it all out of there and put in a new piece and call it good. Well, as luck would have it, the first part of that brace popped right out, no problem, but that last little piece does not want to come out. And of course, with these giant gorilla hands I have, it's really hard to get in there and cut this out. I think you can see that I've got it out of there pretty cleanly. I've got a new piece made, and I am going to apply wood glue to it, put it in here, and then set some weights on it. I'll show you what that looks like. I think you can see down in there that I've got the strip in place. It's glued. Then I have a strip of wood sitting on top of that that's pretty stiff, a piece of hardwood. And then I've got two pieces of steel sitting on top of that. So it's being pressed to the back pretty good there. And I'm going to give that plenty of time to dry. I might work on this pick guard area just a little bit now that it's had 3 coats of that shellac, or actually it's a sanding sealer. I think I may go ahead and give it a 4th coat. I can't keep my numbers straight. I'm going to give it a 4th coat now. I think you can see down in there's 2 posts going up to that brace. I've got that brace glued. I put this large piece of plywood C-clamp. I got leather here and leather on the back, and that made it squeeze out some more glue right in this area here. I also have on this first post where I have this big clamp, I also have about a 1-inch square block of wood on the top so that post can't poke through the top. So it's done pretty well. I think we're in pretty good shape there. I think that'll hold. Here's a look at it a little further back where you can see I've got this extra clamp on the outside, and I have this clamp on the outside to help hold the body together so I can get force enough to press that brace down in there. Just thought I would show you that when you put a straight edge down this fretboard, that it does clear the bridge back here by about 1/16 of an inch to 32nds, so it's not a lot of clearance. There's just a little bit you can see, but it does appear to be in line to work. I think we can make this work. I don't think we're going to need any kind of a neck reset. I'm going to go ahead and flatten out the fingerboard. I think you can see pretty clearly in the video that there's some really deep grooves. I mean, these are really deep. So we probably won't get all of that out, but we'll clean it up and make it all look pretty good. You can see a lot of old sanding marks going this way across there, and I hate to see that. It shows up so bad. So we're going to get rid of all those old sanding marks, and we're going to clean it up and go this way on the fretboard, and it'll look real good. We'll oil it up, show you what it looks like when we're done. In an earlier clip, I showed how this pick guard had not held good enough. I put fresh new double stick tape on it. I've also put 4 coats of sanding sealer on this to make it nice and smooth, and I've sanded it down and got it just as clean and smooth as I can get it. Wiped it down real good so there's no dust on there. And now we're going to attempt to re-stick this. All I have to do is peel this off. That looks good there. I've got it centered kind of in the shrink area, and I'm sure hoping that'll stick better now. The area I'm worried about is right back here. This area had bubbled up, so I made a lot of effort to make sure that it was really smooth back in that area. I have a feeling this will stick now. It feels like it's really adhered well. I don't hear any bubbling or anything under it, so it feels like it's really stuck. I'll point out that I'm trying to take these grooves out of here. They're very deep. I just thought I'd mention what causes these grooves. A lot of people think that it's the string that's wearing into there, but 99% of it is actually fingernails. It's the sharp fingernail protruding past the string and pressing down. You can see here that the E string would go through about right in here, and then the nail hits it right here. So that's from the G. When you're playing the G chord, you can see there's another one here and then for the D, there's 3 of them right here for the D, and then there's a C. You know, so you can actually trace up through there where the fingernails have been. So anyway, the only word to the wise is that trim those fingernails, keep them shortened, especially on rosewood fingerboards. It just chews the heck out of the fingerboards. And this groove here is really deep. As a matter of fact, it's measurably deep. Let's just measure it and see how deep it is. I've got my caliper set on 0, 20 thousandths. So I would say it does look like it's about 15 or 20 thousandths at least, which is quite a bit. I mean, that's really a lot. And we just can't get rid of all of that. So, folks, word to the wise, cut those fingernails. Alright, it doesn't really matter when you do this, but you got to do it sometime, and that's this crack right here. And it's closed, it's very tight, it's closed up. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to take this warm water with a paintbrush here, and I'm just trying to paint it down in that crack any way I can get it down in there. The water has capillary action, and it literally will suck its way into any kind of a crack. Water will go in there before glue will, that's for darn sure. And yeah, you can use a suction cup, and I may do that, but this crack is really closed up, and it's full of polish and different things. You can probably see a white line. The crack, you can feel it's lifted on this side more than this side. This side here is higher, and you can feel that with your fingers going across there. But I'm dipping the suction cup in water, and I'm pushing it up and down on this crack to see if we can get the water to penetrate. Trust me, if you can't get water to penetrate, you can't get glue to penetrate. Water's much thinner than the glue is. And if you can get the water to penetrate, then the glue will follow the water into the crack. Alright, let's look inside and see if we see any hint of moisture coming through. Well, I got to eat my words. I do see some, yes. So there you go. We did get a little bit of moisture coming through after all. So that did work, but just barely any. But I can see some. So we'll do that again. Maybe, if anything, we'll blow that polish and junk out of there. Alright, now we'll try glue and see if we can get glue to follow that down in there. I'm going to take glue and put it right on that same crack. I have to admit the white looks like it's disappeared some, so that's good. Maybe so. I'm not really sure about that. Yeah, I think I can. It's hard to tell because of that white that was already there, but it does kind of look like it's a little more white in there now. I kind of think we did get some glue through. I don't think we would have without the water though first. I truly don't. I don't believe that glue would have gone in that tight of a crack without some water there first. Okay, I got a little bit more water on here, pushing it through. Okay, I think we should have it now. Going across this way to try to minimize the glue that I'm wiping out of the crack. And here's a dry cloth to wipe it all down. Take one more look inside there now. I have a feeling it's going to look pretty good now. Yeah, I think so. I think we did good there. I think we're in good shape. I would actually like to clamp this. I don't think clamping it's going to do much good though. Yeah, it might. I can see glue moving around in here with my thumb, so I'm going to put some pressure on here, put a bar clamp across here, and see if we can draw that together and tight. Okay, I have a bar clamp that has leather pads on both sides. I have a piece of leather on the high side here pushing down on the top. I've got it pretty level. It's much more level than it was. I gotta be honest, it's not perfect. So I think I'm going to try another kind of a clamp right here just to hold it down while that's setting up. As we know, we've got pressure going this way. We've also got pressure going that way. It's not perfect. I ain't gonna tell you it is, but it's better than it was. You can still feel it a little bit, and you're gonna just feel it. It's growed that way over the years, and it does not want to move. But I definitely saw the glue moving in here as I put these clamps on, so I think it's gonna hold once it sets up. Just let it set. I'm gonna have to let it set for probably 8 or 10 hours to make sure the glue is really solid. I'm back to working on these internal back braces or back seam braces, whatever you want to refer to them as. You can see I've taken part of this one out, the second one back in here. I've already replaced this one here. So to get this one out, I was pushing the other way with a chisel through the hole and it was working. But now that I have to come back this direction and that's glued down pretty tight, it's very awkward to get in there. I think you can see through the sound hole that there's that piece left in there. I made this hooked chisel. It's very sharp. I even hardened it. And now I can reach in and pull back this direction and chisel the rest of that out of there. See, it's coming right out now. You can probably see it popped a piece right out of there. So, makes it much easier. I can just kind of scrape the rest of it out of there, just gently work on it, and get the rest of that piece out, and then we'll replace it. It's coming out in pretty good chunks, although this side right here is glued pretty good. There it came. There it is, popped it all out. Much easier if you have the right tool. You're not going to be able to see this, and that's okay. I had to make myself a longer paintbrush to get in there and paint glue back underneath one of these braces. that's about as good as it's going to get as far as getting glue under that brace. It's pretty much almost the whole half of it there. And I got the paintbrush underneath there real good and could paint it real well. It looks like it's pretty well coated as far as I can tell. And now we'll put a post in there to hold that brace to the back. I think you can see way back in there, trying to point to it, but that brace back there with the white right at the bottom edge, that's where the glue is squeezing out. I wiped it down pretty good. That white that you see will disappear because it's right up against the crack. It's not running out or anything. But anyway, I've got a post in there. You can't really see it. It's just impossible to get the camera in there where you can see it. But it is holding it down flat to the back. The post is way over here in the corner, so post is pushing between the top and the back there, holding that brace down. That ought to work. We interrupt this repair, restore, whatever you want to call it, fixer up this Gibson video to talk about some problems I've got here with this particular fix. Some of the bracings are way back toward the tail block, you know, that are loose. And you know, if I had small hands other than these big gorilla meat hooks that I have, I could get in there fairly easily and work, you know. But seriously, I can barely, with these giant hands and arm, by the time I get through the sound hole, I can barely touch where I need to be with the tips of my fingers. You can't do a lot of maneuvering when you can't reach what you're trying to do. Okay, I've tried, you know, several different angles and put my arm in there, turning the guitar upside down, several different things, and I just can't work comfortably in there. So I think, well, there's got to be a way to get a clamp back there and do this, and I could probably manage it, you know, take a wedge and wedge it up to the brace, to the top, and push the brace down to the back. I could probably put a wedge in there, you know, a stick, and get in there and do that. But it's really hard, and you can't, and you're doing them completely blind, and about 9 times out of 10 when you get done, you look in there and the wedge is in the wrong place. It's not really out on the end like you thought it was. You just can't feel where you're at very well, and you don't have enough maneuverability to feel. So I'm trying to think of what's my options. One option would be to buy one of those $100 clamps from StuMac that has the adjustment on the outside of the sound hole, and I'm sure that would work awesome. And $100 isn't a crazy price for something as well made as that, I guess. But you know, $100 is $100, and I'm not made out of money. So I tried to think of what have I got here that I could adjust easily back there. Well, you know, I thought this first. I made this little expandable clamp. You can twist this, but the problem is you really need 2 hands for this. I mean, yeah, if you had it adjusted just right, and you had a groove in here and had a groove in there, and there was braces in the right place, and you could stick it in there, then you could operate with 1 hand because it would be held at both ends. But that's an optimal situation, and this ain't the optimal situation in this case. So that's really out. I tried monkeying with that for a half an hour, and that just isn't going to work. I tried the stick thing, you know, putting sticks in there, and it just hit and miss. So I thought, what else have I got? Well, here's what else I have. I have these little tiny clamps like this. Now, they're made where they don't really come apart easily because they've got these big dimples in here, and so you can't slide this off. And going this way, they do you no good inside. But if you had them turn, both ends turn the opposite way where they're expanding apart, well, then they might work. So I thought, you know, but the problem is this bar is way too long to fit inside the guitar. So I thought, could I take this apart, put it back together, make myself a bar? And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, I could do that. So that's what we did. Here's my new and improved version. And I've already tested it, and it does sort of work. It doesn't work in this direction. You have to do it this way, actually. So in other words, this is on the back, or the back brace that you're trying to glue. So this is here. This is going against the top of the guitar, and in this particular case there is a brace up there, but it's kind of in the way more than it helps, actually. So the problem with this thing is that this sticks down, so you've got to get it about right, you know, so it'll get on the brace and yet it's clear in the back.
and then you just start working this, and you can work this inside there pretty easily, inside the sound hole. I've tried this already, and it goes right on up, and it expands, and it works. You still got problems. You can't see what you're doing, so you're still doing a lot of it by feel, but the fact that you can operate it with one hand helps a lot. And you know, and I can kind of feel when I'm on that brace, you know, right here. The problem is getting it this way straight and all that. You know, it's not perfect, but it seems to work. I've tried it, and we're going to go for it. I also had to make me a very long paintbrush because we're way down inside there. And the reason I want it so long is not because it has to be that long to reach it. It's because I want to be working from way back here. I want to be looking down in the sound hole. If I get the light just right pointed down in here, I can see all the way back to that crack that's loose. And I can get this right in there. I've already done it in practice. And I can paint this right in that crack and know I'm getting it just right. Versus doing it through the sound hole with my arm and I'm just hit and miss. So that's the whole story. Now I also just wanted to update you. I know a lot of you think I'm a superhero. Well, you know, I just thought I'd come out of the closet. I'm actually Batman. So, you know, there you go. My little grandson got a lot of Batman stuff. He's 2.5 for Christmas. And so I guess the family thought I needed a Batman thing since he and I are pretty close. So anyway, I'm happy to wear Batman thing with my 2.5-year-old grandson. Anyway, this seems to work pretty well. Okay, you might want to know how did I make this bar, or if you're interested, or maybe you don't give a hoot, but anyway, here's how I made the bar. Believe it or not, I made it out of this. You recognize that? It's a saw blade. It's a 12-inch saw blade. And I have a metal bandsaw, and I just literally sawed right down through here, and then I just, you know, as accurately as I could, I sawed it again. And the problem was getting it real straight, so I took it to a belt sander and leveled it on a belt sander one side. Then I took it through my regular wood thickness sander and sanded off the last couple of thousandths of an inch to get it exactly the right size. So it's pretty close to the right size. It's actually a hair thinner than this material is. This material, I forget now exactly, I think it was 100 thousandths, and this is about 80 thousandths, so it's a little thinner, but it seems to work, and that's all that matters. Does it work? So, and that way I also, you know, I could have just cut this bar down, but then I've ruined my clamp, and I thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to just save my clamp and just put a different bar on here. That's the reason I made the other bar. And what I had to do is I just filed this little dimple off of here so that I could take this clamp apart and turn it around. And anyway, long story short, it's not that hard to do if you've got the right tools and equipment, of course, and that's fortunately that I do. So here we go. Gonna give it a shot. I've got two of my new handy dandy clamps on the inside pushing up on both ends of this back brace. I put these on the outside to reinforce the top and to give it something to push against better. And the glue squeeze out is perfect. I think it's just going to be absolutely perfect. I'm really glad I made those. That's really going to save a lot of crud inside of guitars in the future. Here we're going inside the guitar to show you what those clamps look like on the back braces. And I'm just showing you the right side. You can see the glue squeeze out. And there's what it looks like up at the top. It's a little difficult to maneuver the camera in there with my big hands. There's a better view of the squeeze out, of course. And that's what it looks like up at the top brace. You're looking down in the sound hole. I don't know if you can see this or not because it's hard to tell in the viewfinder, but you can see that that brace has come loose, been re-glued, but glued in the wrong place. Back there you can see a white line going across the back
or behind it there where it used to be glued on the top. Wow. And a lot of these braces are that way.
So the question is, what do I do with that mess? Holy mackerel. Lots of the braces in the top of this guitar are loose, but they're not loose enough that they're ready to fall out. They're loose on the ends or whatever, and it looks like almost every brace, except maybe the big X brace, has come loose, been re-glued by an amateur, and put in the wrong place. And it's almost every single brace. It'd be a piece of cake to fix it if I could take the back off or the top off. Wow. I'm gonna have to do a little thinking on this to see what just gonna live with it and glue them in place, or try to fix them. Bummer, man. You know, I looked at that several different times, and it never did occur to me that they have completely come out and been re-glued back in. I guess I just didn't see those lighter areas or something. I looked at it a bunch of times, and I could see that that the braces were loose in several places. But it's so much harder to see up underneath there. I even had the little camera inside there shining around, and I didn't really notice anything. I guess it just never dawned on me that all the braces had come out and been glued back in the wrong places. Just never really occurred to me that that would happen. And so I wasn't really looking for that, I guess. But I found it. Alright, saying this another way, it's a mess. You've got your big X brace that comes through here. There's two braces that come off of here, two braces that come off of here, and then there's two braces that come across here. All 6 of these braces have come loose, you can tell, and all 6 have been glued back, and some of them are as much as an inch off of where they're supposed to be. Several of them are, actually. About half of them are, and the other half are maybe a 1/4 inch off of where they're supposed to be, or a 1/2 inch. And not a single one of them is loose enough to get out of there without considerable effort. Man, never ran across anything like that before. We're going inside the guitar so that you can see the problems with these top braces. You can see a ton of glue that they have spread all over the place in there. And you can see that the brace used to be right there, and now it is right there, which is probably, what, an inch off? Inch and a half off? And over there, that brace is there, and there's where it used to be, about a 1/2 inch off at least. So what do you do with that mess? Well, they're glued tight enough that I can't get them out. I tried kind of wiggling them and see if I could break them loose, but they don't seem like they want to come loose, so I elected to just glue them in place. That's why it's so much better to just get them when nobody's messed with them. Once somebody has messed with them, it's way harder to fix. This is a perfect example of that. And I don't think I can really fix it. I honestly don't. I think I'm just going to have to live with it like it is and just glue the loose ends back. Because I can't, they're not anywhere near loose enough to come out of there. They're actually fairly tight. You know, all 6 of them are tight. They're just not tight enough on the ends. Well, several of them. I would say there's 3 or 4 of them that are loose on the ends. And that's really hard to get in there and glue those because you're kind of almost doing it blind. There's no real good way to see what you're doing. I guess I'm whining enough, but man, that's a tough call. I didn't realize it was as bad as it is. It's very depressing after doing all this extra work on here. finally realize that it's worse than you thought it was. Well, I got to thinking, if that much damage has been done to the top bracing, then these X braces can't be that good. Well, I'm not disappointed. Actually, I am disappointed. This X brace that comes across here is actually split the length of it as it connects to the top. Can't get a good picture of that without the camera, but I can see it right here. If I had the camera in my hand, I could show you a good picture of that. But it's come loose from the top. It's hanging down a good 1/8 of an inch or more, and it's split on the end. Oh, fun, fun, fun. Fun, 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 fun. Again, I can't tell if the viewfinder's letting you see the problem there with the X brace up in the top. I've done some dry runs on using a brush, a dry brush, to see if I could reach the crack. I have done a dry run on clamping to see if I can clamp it, and it all looks doable. Now the trick is, can I get in there and get the glue in the crack? And I could with a dry brush. Let's see if I can with the glue on the brush. I made myself a hooked brush here that'll reach back up underneath here, and I have to get over where I can see the mirror. I'm doing this in the mirror, and I got it. Well, everything's backwards. That's the problem. It's hard to... It's very difficult to maneuver. I'm not good at doing things upside down and backwards, and that's basically what I'm doing here. It looks pretty darn good, actually. Considering how tough it is to get to it, that looks pretty good. I turned the light off on the actual mirror, hoping that would give you a better view. I think you can see the upper end of this clamp up in there, and it does have it glued pretty well and clamped pretty well. I might add that the pickguard's holding real well after using the sanding sealer in this area. It doesn't seem to be pulling up at all anywhere now, so I think that's a permanent fix there. So I'm good with that. Now we'll have to let that set for a while, because that one was under a lot of spring tension, so it's got to dry thoroughly to hold. I have to reach so far back into that guitar to glue those back braces that my normal little angled brush just won't even be close to long enough to go back up in there. So I'm going to make a new one with a much longer wire handle, and this brush has kind of seen its better days anyway, so it'll be perfect. Plus it's got a flat blade on it, which will go under those braces real good. So I've got my heat gun here, and we're going to see if it'll heat this up enough to bend it. Not so much. Well, I might still be able to salvage it if it gets hot enough. Pretty soft now. That looks like a pretty good angle there. Let it cool down in that shape, drill a hole in the end, epoxy the wire in there, or whatever we have to do to get the wire to stay in there. Super glue it, something like that. Well, I have fabric cobbled up a brush that will reach, and I had to do a lot of dry runs to get it bent just right, twisted just right, so that it'll reach this back brace. Trust me, it's way in there, and you got to reach through the sound hole, and you got to have a light in there, and it's just not going to be easy, but I think I can do it. Okay, the next problem is, and then I did a dry run on this, of course, is I'm running there with this new clamp, and it works great as far as getting it in there, and I can squeeze it like that. But the problem is the X brace that comes through here and the brace that they glued back in the wrong place meet almost exactly in that corner Well, this hits the X brace before this hits the brace I'm trying to glue. So when I'm squeezing this up, this hits the X brace first, and so it's not putting pressure on the other brace. I can't get in there this direction and do it this way, I don't think. Literally, it's cutting the circulation off on my arm right here. I can just barely, as a matter of fact, my arm is bruised. It just hurts right in there right now. I'm pushing in there so hard to try to get to it, you know. It's just not easy. And, you know, again, one of those special clamps that would reach through the sound hole that you could adjust out here would be perfect, but I don't have one of those. So I'm just trying to figure it out. If I put a taller pad on this, you know, a little block of wood or something, and I may temporarily just put some two-way tape and a little block of wood on here, and that way this will hit the brace before this hits the other brace. And that's about the best I can come up with, so I'm going to try that and see if that works. Oh, and by the way, I got tired of climbing those outside of those buildings with the bat rope, and just decided it would be much easier to leap them in a single bound. Well, you know what? I forgot to use my X-ray vision. Now that I've used it, I figured out what the real problem is. Okay, hard to explain, but the braces that come across through here, as I said, this one, they're both glued in the wrong place. They both should be that way, and this one up front here should be that way at least an inch. I mean, it's that far off. By getting it in the wrong place, they got it up here in the smaller area of the bout, and it needs to be down here where it's further away. They've got it touching the brace on this side, but on this side here, it's climbed up on top of the kerfing. It's sitting up on top of the kerfing by about, a 1/16, maybe a little more, and therefore you can't clamp it down or up to the top. It needs to be cut off just a little bit. I reached in there and tried to break it loose. It's not going to come loose. Not without significant effort. And I'm not getting into that kind of effort. I'm not making that kind of money on this thing. As a matter of fact, I'm in the losing money category already. Because I can't afford to charge the customer the amount of time this is taking. Wow. I don't know what to do. I can just reach the tip end of the brace with my finger like this, with my arm through the hole, so I can't hold a tool and reach in there and try to cut the end of that brace off. If I had a flexible shaft Dremel tool that I could guide from out here, I could reach in there and cut it off, but it's pretty impossible. I really don't know. I'll have to think on it. I don't know if I got this on film or not, so we'll do it again. I made this lethal looking thing. That's a single edge razor blade on the end of a heavy iron wire. It's probably a number 9 iron wire, so it's pretty stiff. I need every inch of that length and probably a couple of inches longer. I'm trying to reach all the way down through this sound hole, all the way down to about here, and cut the end of that brace off. And that brace is a 1/4 inch wide, I'm just saying approximately, a 1/4 inch wide and probably a full 1/8 of an inch thick right where I need to cut it off. Well, you know, first of all, you don't have much leverage when you're out here holding the end of something like that. And that's pretty much wood to cut off. I can't be accurate. I can't see it good because it's on the top. I'm trying to reach around, see, trying to hold the light, trying to hold the guitar. The bottom line is, if you don't know how to fix something correctly, that's the problem here. It's not the problem that I'm trying to do all this work. It's the problem that somebody else fixed this thing incorrectly to begin with. They put that brace in there and they missed the mark by a full inch of where it should have been. Had it been in the right place, we wouldn't have this problem. The brace wouldn't be up on the kerf. We wouldn't have a gap between the top and the brace, and we could just re-glue it and clamp it and we'd be done. That's not the situation. There's no way to glue that brace to the top without cracking something, and more than likely it would be the top.
So I've got to figure out some way to get that brace cut off because I cannot break it out of there. It's way too hard to break out of there. I'll break the top or something else trying to get that brace out of there. Whew, what a bummer. It just keeps getting worse because now I've been focused on this one side here, but I look at the X brace on the other side. It's been redone too, and that X brace is actually sitting up on the kerf over here. It's not sitting on the top. All the way across here, it's not touching the top. Holy mackerel. I really don't know what to do. About the only way to fix this right would be to take the back off. I just can't see doing that for this kind of money. Oh my gosh. And that would just make everything a mess. You can't, I mean, there's very little chance you'd get the binding off in one piece. I mean, it could come off in one piece, but it would probably break and crack and just mess up the whole finish around the back and everything. Oh man, what a pain. What a pain. I really don't know what to do with this. This is one of the few times I have been totally flustered in terms of how to fix it. You know, if the brace had some play in it at all, I'd just break it out of there and just make a new brace or whatever and put it in there correctly, but it doesn't have any play in it. It's glued pretty well to where it is glued, it's glued pretty well. Whatever glue they used, it's pretty good and it's stuck. If you've watched many of my videos, you know I don't give up easy. I have taken a single edge razor blade, glued it to this heavy steel wire. Then on top of that, I glued a piece of actual saw blade. It's very fine. It's like for fret cutting saw, but it's even finer than that. Very small teeth, and I've got it where it's pulling. And I've actually cut about halfway through that brace now, right on the tip end. I'm only trying to cut off about 1/8 of an inch off the end of it, but I'm about halfway through it. I think I'm going to get it if I keep at it with this. Oh my goodness. Here's a little bit of the technique, even though you can't see what I'm doing. I can just barely see it. I've got the mirror in there where I can see what I'm trying to cut. Everything's backwards. You got to remember that when you know, it's completely backwards because it's in the mirror. And I'm working, but I am making progress. I can see the braces actually freed up on the end down there now for sure. So that's good. And I would say I'm a little over halfway through it. And I am getting the blade back in the same slot each time. Barely. And then the mirror, I'll bump the mirror and the mirror moves and then I can't see anything. I'm so close, but I'm so far away. I'd like to say that was easy, but there's the little chunk of brace I had to cut out of that angle there. About, you know, half of that was setting up on the kerfing. Now you can see how thick it was. And anyway, I sawed it right across there and got it to come out of there. I ended up improving my tool a little bit. I actually took, the glue failed after a while, and that I knew it would, but I just soldered the saw blade to this now. And I think this tool is going to be a handy tool in the future. I mean, if I ever need to reach inside and cut something off, there you go. I've got a tool to reach inside and cut something off. And like I said, it pulls, which is the way you would need this to work. And it really works good. I'm telling you, when you can reach back in there that far back in there and cut something off, you're doing pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now we should be able to glue it and clamp it in place. Well, I've done a dry run on the glue up here with the brush, you know, to make sure I could get the brush in there. And of course on camera, whenever you do it on camera, it never is going to work as easy, obviously. But I have to get this mirror in just the right spot and hold it with my hand here while I'm holding the guitar. So I'm holding the guitar and the mirror with my left hand, and now I will take glue with this contraption here. I'm standing the guitar up so that gravity will be my friend here. I'm trying to get a lot of glue on the brush, and I'm trying to get this in here without making a mess. And keep in mind, everything is backwards. Oh, it's really hard. Okay, that's probably as good as it's going to get. Now I got to get a damp rag in there and clean up the majority of the mess. As if this hasn't been complicated enough, we made this blade to saw off the brace that went this way and was up on the kerf, okay? Well, now this particular X brace has been reglued and it's up on the kerf also, but it's over here now. Now, if you will look, the X brace runs like this. I can't use this saw over here because look, it's going parallel with the X brace. It's running in the same direction or in line with it. So I can't saw the end of it off. So I'm going to have to make yet another saw to get in here on this side and saw off this. I mean, I could rebend this one and everything, but the problem is this is soldered to the wrong side of the wire. Even if I did rebend it, it wouldn't work very well. So I'm just going to make another one. Here we go. Well, I made the mirror image saw for this other side over here. And it probably would work just as well. There's a big problem difference though. It makes me have to try to saw it with my left hand. And I am not very coordinated with my left hand. And trying to get in, and this is a place where you really have to be very coordinated to keep it in the same groove and to keep it moving right. And I'm trying to do this with my left hand inside there, hold the mirror with my right hand. I've tried to switch it around and get my right hand and then my mirror, and it's almost impossible. I am just trying to figure out how I'm going to get all the way back into this area back here and saw that just the end of that brace off so that it's not riding on the kerf. Otherwise I can't clamp it up to the top. It's a puzzler, let me tell you. I'm trying. I've tried standing the guitar up. I've tried putting it up on my shoulder like this. I've got it up on my shoulder now, the neck, and trying to get in here like this with my right hand. And that's as close as I'm going to get right at the moment. But man, it is a tough one. It ain't pretty, but here's my method for doing it. I have to lean, I get the mirror in here where I can see it, and that's hard enough. And then I have to get my head down like this. And this way I can control it with my right hand. But it ain't easy, I'm telling you. Everything's backwards, and you're upside down. And you can just make a tiniest little cut each time you go. To try to put this in perspective of what we're doing, I'm reaching inside this hole, and this brace is at a steep angle. It's actually like this, and I'm trying to saw it off like this. I'm reaching under there. Now the brace is moving because it's loose halfway across it. I can't get it to break loose, but it's pulling. And if you've ever tried to use a handsaw in a slot, you know they bind. Well, that's what's happening. I'm reaching in there and I'm pulling on this, and it's binding, and this is pulling, and it's upside down and it's backwards. You ain't never tried to saw anything off that's harder than this. I'm telling you, you've never tried anything harder than this. It's unbelievable. I would say I'm 2/3 of the way through this brace now. I had to take a little break because it was killing me. But this is how I'm doing it again. I'm leaning down like this. The other problem is that the LED light, you know, gives me light, but it also gets in my eyes. And it's really hard to get a happy medium there and get this where I want it. Let's see if I can reach in there and break it off now, because it's so close to being all the way through. Oh my gosh. The problem is I don't think I can even reach it. I can just reach it with the tip of my finger. Just with the tip. I'll take my sleeve off. Literally, with just the tip of my finger, I can get to it. And it's not breaking, unfortunately. There it is. Yep, it popped off. Holy mackerel. Whew. That was tough. I don't know when I've ever done anything harder on an instrument than that. That was the most challenging thing I believe I've ever done. Oh my goodness. You just can't really know until you try that one time. For the record, that's what it looked like. And you can see it was really basically sawed all the way through. It just wasn't, the last little tiny bit of fiber was holding it, I guess. But I finally popped it off of there, and this was setting up on the kerf, and I couldn't get it down. So now I can get it down, and we'll glue it. Things will be good. I know you can't really see what I'm doing here, but I have to get the guitar in this position, reach in with this long crazy glue thing, and I've got the mirror in there. The difference with this one, what makes this one much harder, is that the brace is really running at a very, very steep angle. Very steep angle. So it's hard to get the brush under it. The brush wants to run alongside it rather than go under it. I got in there with a rag, cleaned all the extra glue off, put the clamp in there and squeezed it up there. It looks like it's clamped up correctly, but I don't see any squeeze out at all. Well, maybe just a tiny, tiny amount. So I don't have a lot of confidence that I got much glue under that brace, so I'm going to try it again. I failed to get the video camera turned on, and therefore you missed the re-glue of that brace, but not very exciting anyway. I have since filled the end pin hole with a dowel, and a tapered dowel that is, and I am now re-drilling it so that I can put in a screwed in strap button. The reason for that is because I suspect that has been falling out, and that's probably what caused the break in the lower bout where they had patched it previously and sprayed it with black paint. Well, we've got her in pretty good shape. Going to start stringing it up to see what happens. I've got a new deer antler saddle and a new deer antler nut on it. So we made a new antler nut which has no string grooves yet, and a new deer antler saddle back here, and which is pretty high. I know it's not going to be right either, so just going to put on 2 strings right now and get the 2 outside strings close, and then we'll, cut everything down to match that, and we'll go from there. Well, I was kind of in a hurry to get her all finished up, and she looks pretty darn good. I think you can see the shine on her now. Not perfect, but it looks like an old instrument that's been fairly well cared for now versus the way it came, if you remember what it looked like at the beginning. And
Tuning keys are holding very well. They're working good. I will just point out that there is a lot of slop in these tuning keys, but that doesn't mean they don't work. People think that a lot of times, but just because they're slop doesn't mean they're not going to hold. All it really means is you have to for sure tune up to your note. Never ever tune down to your note. But that's true on really any tuning keys anyway. So, you know, as long as you tune up to your note, these tuning keys should be fine. I've got the action down real nice and low. It's down to 18 thousandths up here, and it's about 100 thousandths down here at the 12th fret, and maybe even a hair lower. And got deer antler saddle in there, fitted up real nice. Put new string pegs in, new tail pin button. This seam was glued all the way down. This seam was glued all the way down. Repaired this little plug that came out. All of the top braces were re-glued. Oh my goodness. And there's so much glue smeared around inside there that I didn't do. I cleaned up my mess. There was a lot of other mess in there. And I glued most of the braces on the back, at least one end of them. And I also completely re-glued that whole strip, that little brace that goes right down the center. Anyway, I made all that new, I think, except one piece. I made all the rest of those new and put in there. And I don't know, pick guard back on there. That's holding really, really good. I'm so glad I put that finish on there and then stuck the pick guard down again. It's absolutely as tight as it can be. I'm real happy with it. I think you'd be hard pressed to find one in better shape at this point in time. I'm a little bit concerned about the way they put the braces back in there because, like I said, they're off by sometimes an inch. But I don't think that's totally a structural issue. I don't think that's going to be that much of a problem. So I would just recommend always putting light strings on this guitar. So that's what I have on here at the moment. I've got 12s to 54s. And here's what she sounds like. Sound. Oh, the love you promised to be mine forever, I would have bet my bottom dollar on. Well, it sure turned out to be a short forever. For just once I turned my back and you were gone. From now on, all my friends are gonna be strangers. I'm all through ever trusting anyone. The only thing I can count on now are my fingers. I was a fool believing in you now that you're gone. Yes, I was a fool believing in you, now you are gone. Nice sounding guitar. I also heard a little bit more on the story on this. The man that sent it to me apparently knew about the guitar, and it belonged to a lady who played it professionally on the road. That's about all the story I remember at the moment, but it had a hard life apparently out on the road. And it's ready to go back out on the road again. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this.